sister's wedding was perfect. Mom beamed across the dinner table. When will it be your turn? I smiled, sipped my wine, and said, it already happened. You just weren't there. The whole room froze. My name is Kella Monroe. I'm 32. And if you think this is about a forgotten invitation, stay tuned. Because sometimes the real betrayal isn't being left out. It's realizing you were never really counted in. The room was aglow of champagne glasses and well-dressed guilt. Dad cleared his throat. My sister blinked rapidly, like she'd walked into the wrong conversation. You're joking, right? She asked. I set my glass down.
No.
Mom blinked like she'd been slapped. When? She whispered. 6 months ago, I said. A courthouse. Just us. No drama. Her face fell, lips parting with the kind of shock only expectation can summon. You didn't tell us. No, I said, because you were too busy planning her perfect day. You didn't even ask if I was seeing anyone. They hadn't. Not once. When I got engaged, I kept it private, not out of shame, but protection. Protection from the comparisons, the judgment, the subtle ways they made me feel like a spare part in someone else's fairy tale. So we eloped. Just me, Asher, and a steel blue sky. No venue drama. No seating charts. No tears from my mother about how the table linens weren't elegant enough. I had mailed a single photo afterward. One of me in my dress. Laughing.
Real.
No one replied. So tonight, I gave them the truth. Raw, clean, final. My sister looked away. Mom swallowed her wine like it was venom. And Dad, he finally asked something real. Is he good to you? I nodded.
Yes.
Better than you were. After the dinner silence wore off, Mom did what she always did when control slipped. She tried to reframe the narrative. You should have told us, she said, with that rehearsed tremble in her voice. As your mother, I had a right to be there. I raised my eyebrows. A right? I looked at my sister. You didn't think I had a right to be at yours, remember? Because I hadn't forgotten. The missing RSVP. The suddenly lost invitation. The day of text that said, we assumed you'd be too busy with work. But I hadn't been busy. I'd sat in my apartment, alone, watching their photos flood social media, like confetti. My sister's smile, Mom's tears, Dad's toast. All while I scrolled, heart pounding, face hot, and realized they never wanted me there. Not really. I was the background sister. The one who never needed help. The one who made unconventional choices and didn't follow tradition. So, I created my own. My wedding was small. No matching dresses. No tiered cake. Just vows spoken on a windy hilltop, our hands pressed together, our eyes locked in defiance of everyone who said love only matters when it's witnessed. I didn't post it online. I didn't need their likes. Dad sighed now at the table, heavy and tired. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I almost believed the softness in his voice. Until I remembered his toast at my sister's wedding. We're so proud to have one daughter who's finally doing things the right way. I looked him dead in the eye. You didn't ask. No one did. They only saw me when I reflected their image.
But now?
I was done holding the mirror. And across the table, for the first time in my life, I saw my sister's smile fade. My sister finally spoke. I didn't think you'd want to come to my wedding, she said, eyes flicking down to her plate. You always make everything about you. That was rich, coming from the girl who demanded 5 dress changes and cried over the shade of peonies. I tilted my head. Not inviting someone and justifying it after the fact doesn't make it right, it makes it rehearsed. She flinched.
So did Mom.
Dad picked up his fork like it was a shield. I kept going, not to wound, but to witness. I was never going to be the sister who looked good in bridesmaid photos, or the one who made your love story look bigger by standing quietly beside you. That's not fair. Neither was watching you all clink glasses while I sat home wondering what I did wrong. Her lip trembled, but I didn't soften, because the problem wasn't the wedding. It was years of revisionist history, years of being labeled dramatic for speaking up, years of being told I was too intense, too independent, too much. And yet somehow, not enough to be invited. Mom jumped in. Well, it's over now. Maybe we can move forward. I shook my head. See, that's the thing. I already did. Without you. Her face dropped like a chandelier cracking from the ceiling. I stood up, napkin folded gently in hand. I didn't come here to explode. I came here to set the record straight. I looked at my sister. You got the wedding you wanted. I looked at my parents. You got the daughter you celebrated. Then I smiled genuinely. And I got the peace none of you ever offered. And with that, I walked out, leaving behind the only seat I'd ever truly been assigned at that table. The empty one. You said. 3 days passed before anyone said a word. Not a call. Not a text. Just silence. Cold and tactical. And then on a Wednesday night, Mom emailed. You blindsided us. Your sister is heartbroken. There was no need for that scene. No need? I stared at the screen like it might blink and correct itself. That scene was me finally speaking. One truth. At one table. After decades of swallowing everything else.
I didn't reply.
But they weren't done. My sister posted a throwback on social media. A photo of her wedding day. Captioned. Some people watch. Some people vanish. Real love shows up. The comments were predictable. Friends validating. Distant cousins chiming in. A parade of digital loyalty. I didn't flinch. Because they could spin the story all they wanted. I had already lived it. Meanwhile, Asher, my husband, was folding laundry when I told him. He didn't ask for details. Just walked over, kissed my forehead, and said, Do they even know your favorite flower? They didn't. He did. Calla lilies. He planted them outside our rental 2 months before we got married. Said, Now your name lives in the garden. My family never asked why we eloped. Never noticed how light I became once I stopped performing daughterhood like it was an unpaid role. I went on with my life. Until another email arrived. This time from Dad. Just 5 words. Can we talk? Just us. I hovered over it. Because sometimes the ones who stay silent after your truth erupts are the ones who finally heard it echo. And sometimes, they're just hoping to pull you back in gently before you realize you're free. I took a deep breath. And typed. We'll see. You said. Dad picked a diner, neutral ground. Same one we used to go to after my violin recitals. He was already seated when I arrived, hands folded, coffee half full. For a second, I saw the dad I remembered, steady, quiet, impossible to read. I'm not here to take sides, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You've already taken them. He nodded, slowly. I know. The silence stretched between us like fabric pulled too tight. Then he said, You getting married without telling us it hurt. I didn't flinch. You not asking where I was the day of her wedding? That hurt too. He looked down, thumb tracing the rim of his cup. I didn't know how far it had gone, he said. Between you and your mother. You and your sister. I let that sit. Dad, it didn't go anywhere. It stayed exactly where it always was, unequal. He didn't argue. Instead, he reached into his coat and slid a photo across the table. Me and Asher. Smiling. Wind blown. My dress caught mid-spin. I kept this, he said. Even when your mom said it was disrespectful. I stared at the photo. My hands had been shaking when I sent it. One last attempt. One last olive branch. I didn't know how to reach you, he added. Not without her listening. I leaned back. Then maybe don't reach for me until you're willing to stop whispering around her. His eyes softened. I miss you. I folded the photo and tucked it into my purse. I'm not lost, Dad. I just stopped walking in your direction. He nodded again. No defense. No pleading. And maybe, finally, he understood. I hadn't left the family. I'd just stopped waiting for them to meet me halfway. 2 days after the diner, Mom showed up at my door. Unannounced. Uninvited. She didn't even knock. She waited in her car like a lawyer prepping closing arguments, sunglasses on, jaw set like granite. I opened the door slowly. She stepped out, arms crossed, lips pursed. I suppose your father told you I was the villain now. I didn't answer. Because villains don't always wear black. Sometimes they wear pearls and speak in sighs instead of slurs. I raised you better than this, she said. Did you? I replied, calm. She exhaled. You embarrassed us. You humiliated your sister. No, I said. I answered your question. You asked when it would be my turn. I told you. And that scene at dinner was honesty. I cut in. The silence swelled. A war without noise. Then she stepped closer. You've always needed too much, she whispered. Too much validation. Too much space. I felt that line hit where it was meant to, but this time it didn't land. Because she didn't know. I'd already unpacked that wound. With Asher. In therapy. In the stillness of a marriage she never asked about. I looked at her the way you look at a painting you once loved, and now see for what it really is, technique without truth. You didn't lose a daughter, I said. You just lost the version you controlled. She blinked. You think you're better than us now? No, I said. I think I'm just done bleeding for the applause you never gave me. She didn't cry. She turned, walked back to her car. Engine started. No wave, just taillights fading down the street. And I closed the door without guilt. Because not every ending needs a slam. Some need silence and a lock. A week later, the wedding album arrived. Not mine, my sister's. A thick, cream-colored envelope with gold embossing and the Monroe family crest etched in the corner. No note, just the album. Sent to me like a peace offering. Or a provocation. Asher watched me slit it open at the kitchen counter. Sure you want to do this? He asked gently. I nodded. Sometimes, closure isn't about what you want to see, but what you're finally ready to face. The first few pages were predictable. Dress fittings. Champagne flutes. Dad walking her down the aisle. Then came the reception. Mom mid-toast, eyes glassy with pride. A long, scripted quote about daughters, dreams, and destiny. Then one image made me freeze. A family portrait. Everyone lined up, smiling, poised. And there it was. My name, written under the photo. Except the body standing there wasn't me. It was my cousin from Vermont. Same height, same dark hair. Wearing a dress suspiciously similar to one I once wore to a graduation. They passed her off as me. Framed it. Labeled it. Posted it online. As if presence could be faked. As if truth was just a caption away from revision. Asher stood behind me, jaw tight. They replaced you, he said quietly. In pictures. No, I whispered. They erased me, and didn't think I'd notice. I slid the album back in the envelope. Didn't tear it. Didn't scream. I simply wrote one word across the front in permanent marker. Return. Dropped it in the mailbox the next morning. No note inside. No explanation. Because when someone deletes you from the frame of their perfect story, you stop being the background and start being the author of your own. You said. They never responded. Not to the returned album. Not to the message written across the envelope. Not to the unspoken truth inside it. And that silence? It didn't ache. It clarified. I stopped waiting for the apology that would never come. The revision that would never be printed. Instead, I started building something of my own. Asher, and I found a little venue by the lake. Nothing fancy, just a wide porch, twinkle lights, and space for 30 chairs. We called it a celebration of honesty. Not a second wedding. Not a do-over. Just a gathering of the people who actually showed up. Old friends. Colleagues. 2 neighbors who brought homemade pie. No seating chart. No expectations. No relatives needing emotional babysitting. And when I stood in front of those 30 souls and read our vows, again, but this time aloud, I didn't cry. I breathed. Because healing isn't always poetic. Sometimes it's just honoring what was real in front of those who never made you earn love like a prize. Afterward, someone asked if my family was coming. I smiled gently. No. They already attended a wedding. Just not mine. That night, back at home, I took the last box down from the closet. Old cards. Framed quotes from Mom. A bridesmaid dress I never wore. I placed it all in a bag. Not with rage, with relief. And dropped it off at the donation bin on 7th Street. A girl in line behind me said, "That's a really pretty dress." I turned and smiled. It was never really mine. And as I walked away, lighter than I'd felt in years, I realized. Family isn't who shares your name. It's who never has to ask twice where you were when it mattered.